How are you today, Sabrina? It has been so long.
I know it's been so long. So, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
You are a new dad. Well, not so new anymore. It's been
Not
a
so
month.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And but it feels new. It feels new. I forgot about the lack of sleep, the added challenges, but it's great. It feels really good. This is
Yeah,
third child, so very large,
respect.
active, chaotic family now. So very
Absolutely.
exciting.
You're fully living the event prof, like event dad life, like legit, like completely, right?
You
Which
know,
I think is amazing. We've already got a couple of viewers. We've got Yarrow joining us from Poland, from Warsaw. We've got Naomi joining us from the UK. Lovely to see our wonderful third moderator for Digital Disruptor
hello,
event. Thank you
hello.
for joining us, Naomi. So yeah, lovely to have you here. Like I'm telling everyone, we did take a little bit of a hiatus, but basically, I gave Jason paternity leave for a month.
No more, huh? Not a
No more,
day more. Yeah.
because I'm super like nice. And then I'm like, let's get back to life.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, hey everyone, welcome to 20 Minutes Event Profs Weekly Live. We are back. We are now committed to doing this every week. We're going to. And the change is that now we're just going to be talking about anything and everything to do with event profs, not just marketing. That's going to be one of the topics we talk about because we both love it. But it's going to be everything from
Mm.
mental health to what's happening, events, meetups, everything and anything we've been seeing people doing, people saying, and all of that good stuff.
Mm.
Now, the main topic today that we are going to be talking about is omni-channel events and how every event now is basically omni-channel. So stop defining. But before we get to it, we thought we would have a little bit of a catch up on what's been happening. So, what's been happening on your end? What have you been seeing happening, Jason?
A lot. There's been a lot, which is good. We've kind of the I think the challenging part of being an event professional at the moment is there are no curves. It's not like a nice soft curve that where business kind of dropped off a little bit and then business is kind of picking up again.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a series of very sharp cliffs. So like the cliff
Yeah.
fell off, and then now I'm seeing like there's not a nice like stepping stone back up. It's just like a steep climb up to the top again. Demand is like insane. I'm talking to venues, I'm talking to suppliers, I'm talking to clients, and I mean people are very busy all of a sudden, and it's a challenge for the supply network. People are still onboarding, people are still coming back into the workforce, but it's exciting, but it's also very challenging. So I'm seeing a lot of events, people asking for events already in October, November. Have a couple Christmas inquiries coming in. Next spring is looking really busy in Barcelona. A lot of the venues next spring are pretty full. It's hard to get dates, and that's also a result of the fact that credits are being pushed back so much. So
Yeah.
some of that is new business, some of that is credits from the past. So yeah, I mean, look, I feel like we're not in 2019. We're not there yet,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of life being breathed into the sector, and I feel like it's coming back on. It's coming back on, and it's coming back on fairly quickly, and that's exciting because now, as we do come back to live events, we all have these other tools with us now, which we'll be talking about, which is the hybrid, the digital, the virtual side, that we can bring these into these events as they come back on board. So it's yeah, a lot happening, a lot happening.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I've been hearing the same thing from so many suppliers as well as agency owners and
Mm,
event planners. It is back. It's back with a vengeance, I
mm,
almost want to say.
yeah,
But yeah, you're very right about the resource side of it and the supply chain not being able to match up with the demand right about now because we've had quite a significant loss of talent or
mm,
people have reskilled and moved to other areas.
mm,
Or even completely different industries. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see what is going to happen because whilst events are technically back,
mm.
the workforce might not be. So
Right, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's all up in the air at the moment. But what I'm super excited about is the fact that we are busy again.
yeah,
We're getting requests. People want to meet in person.
yeah.
People want to get more creative and
Mm,
add different channels and features and components to what they're doing, and they're willing to do those things now.
Mm.
So I thought one of the interesting things we should talk about was the great outage that happened yesterday. Because my world did actually shut down
Just
completely. Like
stop.
just shut down. But I was so happy at that
Yeah.
point when I realized, I was like, right, so Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp were down for 5 hours, I think it
Was it
was.
5
Right?
hours in the end? Wow.
It was 5 hours.
That's
Now,
crazy.
when I was doing the Digital Disruptor event in Stavanger, Norway, one of the things I always do is I like hanging around the AV production guys, just because
Mm.
I don't know. I just think there's so many things you can learn.
Absolutely.
And I'm quite a big nerd, even though I can't do a lot of the techie stuff. I like learning about what they're doing, so I'm just like hovering around, right? And I do that at all events because I'm fascinated by the world of tech and production. So when we were there for the event, Instagram actually went down because I
Mm.
was trying to post, posts for the event to, online. And I was like
Mm.
telling Heidi, like, I have to post stories. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I just couldn't. And I was like, what is happening? And at that point where I asked that question, I was standing next to one of the AV production guys. And he said to me, well, you just have to go to this website to see if Instagram is down or not. And I was like,
Mm.
there's a website. So this is for everyone. Here's a tip for you all. There's a website called downdetector.com. If you're ever wondering if a social media platform or channel, whether it's YouTube or Reddit or LinkedIn or
Mm.
Instagram or Facebook or whatever is down because you can't upload, you can't do anything, go to www.downdetector.com and you will find
Nice.
it. So that's a big learning. And I was just like, after that, I was like, oh, do you know about downdetector.com? Do you know about downdetector.com? And so yesterday, when it was down, that was the first website I went to. And yeah, it had been
Mm.
down. And what they do is they have a graph. And what they do is people log issues. So there
Mm.
was this massive spike for like 5 hours that Facebook was down, and the app was down, the server was down, and the website was down. So it
Wow.
was really, really interesting.
Hmm.
Um, there
I
were a lot
I could have used that last night because my
of
wife called me over at like I don't know 7 o'clock. Is like my phone's not working. I was like, okay, yeah. So I went into like I reinstalled Android. I don't know. I cleaned it up. I did so many things, and I looked on my phone. And I was like, wait a second, it's not working on mine either. So I spent like 30 minutes trying to fix her phone when actually downdetector.com
could have
helped.
helped. And
Yeah.
this is what was interesting, right? Because it's and this is where, even if you are not on social, say you're not on Instagram and you're not on Facebook,
Mm.
you're on WhatsApp,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So my husband's on WhatsApp, and
Mm.
he was just like, everything's down. And I was just like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he's
Mm.
like, no, and we can't send anyone messages. We're completely
Mm.
stuck. And then I was
Mm.
just like, wait a minute. Facebook owns Instagram, Facebook owns
Yeah. Yeah.
WhatsApp. So Facebook must be down. So that's when I went to
Mm.
that website. And yes,
Mm.
it was. And that was I think the whole world basically went onto Twitter,
Mm. Yep.
as well as I think it was iMessage if you have an
Mhm.
iPhone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was hearing from so many people. And then I thought, tomorrow I need to do a reel on this, which I have done
Mm,
on my Instagram, which is up and running, of
okay.
course,
Check it
now.
out.
Um, about how you need to learn from this experience, everyone,
Mm,
especially if you're using social media platforms for your marketing and your branding and all of that good stuff, online
mm,
digital marketing. Diversify the platforms that you are using. Do not put all your social media eggs into one basket called
mm,
Facebook,
mm,
right?
mm,
Um, use LinkedIn, use Twitter, or use a combination, because yes, exactly as Yaro is saying, and I'm going to put this up on screen because it's a brilliant statement.
mm.
Monopoly is dangerous. It
Yeah.
is dangerous because think if nothing else existed, right? So
Mm,
yeah, this is where you need to be very careful about, yes, you want to be on Facebook, great. You want to be on Instagram, great. You want to use WhatsApp for business, great. But if something happens like what happened yesterday, you're screwed,
mm. Yeah.
right? So really, really diversify. And Yaro did a great post on LinkedIn earlier today, and on Twitter, about how it's so important, and I completely agree with him. This is when you realize that you need to really spend, and invest in having an optimized SEO ranked website. Very,
Mm,
very important. And
mm,
also build your website presence online, because that's your content that will live on
mm,
there forever. That doesn't go down.
mhm,
Um, and also email marketing.
mhm.
Get those emails. You will always have a direct line of communication to your clients, and you'll still be able to get the messages out. And you're
Mm,
not dependent on the social media channels if they go down.
right.
So I thought that was very interesting. So that was our learning for what happened from yesterday.
And from an events planner's point of view too, my first thought was like, there must be so many people who had their Facebook event or they had, their Instagram live or what, I know there
Yeah,
were people who had been planning things for months. And I mean, imagine it's not just the internet that goes down, it's it's the entire platform. So
exactly.
having a plan B out there, and in the worst case scenario that the internet blows up, what are we going to do, right? And last night was the perfect example of that. Having that plan in place, even if it's just a communication plan. Okay, maybe you cannot do the event, but how are we going to communicate this to everybody if X or Y or Z happens? So yeah, really interesting and crazy. I mean, I never would have thought that all three of like the largest social networks in the world would go down for 5 hours. It's insane.
No. And also that's interesting what you brought up, because so many people, so many event planners I know, especially, I've experienced this myself. When we're running an event on site, we create WhatsApp groups. And that's how
Mm,
we keep in touch with each other.
yeah, yeah.
So imagine if
Hmm.
you were running an event last night, wherever you were in the world, at
Hmm.
some point someone is running an event and you would have this WhatsApp group and you wouldn't be able to communicate.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you'd have to be on Signal, or you'd have
Hmm.
to be on Slack. I would
Yeah.
see would be the only two kind of
Hmm.
alternative options, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun. That was an interesting experience, and I think we all learned from it.
For
And
sure.
don't do that. Um, and as you mentioned, events are back.
Hmm.
Industry events are actually back in a big
Yeah.
way. I know on my LinkedIn feed, I've been seeing so many amazing pictures of so many event profs
Hmm.
meeting each other, especially in London. They've got the meetings show that happened. And then I went to the meetings space that happened in Copenhagen. It's one of the
Hmm.
first industry forums or meeting mice forums that have opened up again,
Hmm.
or started again, and it'd been delayed from I think last autumn, so they did it
Yeah.
this time. And I was in Copenhagen, and I'll tell you what, it was pretty spectacular to be walking
Hmm.
around with no restrictions, because
Mm.
Denmark basically got rid of all restrictions. I want to say a month ago. No
Wow.
masks, no social distancing. You don't have to show that you're double vaccinated or anything, because when they ask you, if you ask someone in Denmark, "Are you vaccinated?" they turn around to you and they say, "Yeah, aren't you?"
Right.
So that's Denmark,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And is
right?
that indoors? That's indoors as well.
That's indoors as well. So it
Okay.
was very surreal. I felt a
Mm.
little bit like walking. It was like walking around the Twilight Zone. I kind of didn't know
Yeah,
what to
yeah,
do with myself.
yeah.
But I did experience that in Stavanger in Norway. It was exactly the same.
Mm,
So for me, it was really nice to just walk around and do an event like
mm,
properly. But for the event's purposes, just so that everyone knows, every single attendee had to do a PCR test for
mm,
72 hours, within 72 hours of being at the show, so that we
mm,
knew and we could all be together, even without masks, knowing that everyone had tested
mm,
negative.
mhm,
Um, and then I believe, depending on where you were going back to, the team set up PCR testing as well as rapid testing to make sure you could go back to your relevant countries and you had all the tests and everything that you needed. So, when it comes to now organizing in-person events, there's this extra layer of logistics that you're going to have
mhm.
to add on top and be very, very on top of, because the regulations are changing all the time.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that was
but
interesting.
I like that though. I mean, I had the same thing at the Mobile World Congress, and I mean, it gave. I mean, first of all, it's the smart thing to do. I think it's necessary, but from an attendee's perspective, an exhibitor's perspective as well, it gives you a sense of security. I mean, I remember walking around the Mobile World Congress thinking, I feel safer inside of this building with 20,000 people than I would sitting inside of a restaurant down the street, because I know that to get into this building, there were a few different filters that everybody had to pass through
Yeah.
to, it's not 100% guarantees. That's impossible, but there's a very, very, very low chance that anybody in here is walking around spreading COVID. Whereas, if you're in a restaurant or if you're in a bar or all the other places that you're allowed to go without any restrictions, you don't have the same sense of security. So I think I don't mind. I think it's a very small price to pay in
Yeah.
order to get back to business.
Absolutely, totally agree. And so it'll be interesting to see what's going to be happening in the months coming up, at least until
Mm,
the end of the year, because I know a ton of industry events that are still going ahead. IMEX
mm,
Vegas is going
mhm,
ahead.
mm,
IBTM in Barcelona
mhm.
is
Yep,
going ahead. I
yep.
will be there.
Yeah.
Meet Jason in person. This is going to be so exciting.
Let's do an in-person stream. That'd be weird.
It's
Maybe
going
we
to be
just sit in
so.
different rooms. We'll just sit
We
in
should
different
sit
rooms.
in
I
different
just
rooms. I think so too. Just, just to kind of, that would be
keep it
so funny.
normal.
Like Jason's in the next room. That would be so weird. Yeah, and I know the Event Tech Awards are happening in London. The
Hmm.
UK version that's coming up, and the meeting show just happened. So the industry events are definitely back,
Yep.
and so far they've all been happening very safely, and
Yeah.
they've been very small cases, if
Yep.
any. So that's been
Amazing.
really really positive and great to see, and just great to see our industry getting back together and meeting
Yeah.
each other, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, but the topic today is about omni-channel events.
Yes.
Now, I reached out to you and I said, let's talk about this because I was getting super, super frustrated at people just trying to define events,
Yeah.
This is virtual, this is hybrid, this is in person,
Right.
this is that. And I got really irritated. I was just like, you know, at the end of the day, an in person event isn't truly 100% in person.
Mm.
And a virtual isn't truly 100% virtual. And hybrid
Hmm.
is whatever you want it to be.
Hmm.
So, why can't we just call them all omni-channel events?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah. Because
the question.
well, yeah, I agree with you. It felt like over the last 18 months, people were slowly like choosing sides, right? Like, I'm in the virtual event side, or I'm in the in-person side, or um, and I'm right there with you. It says to me, and the argument or the conversation just never even made sense because one's not better,
Mhm,
and at the end of the day, we're all trying to create an event, an experience, and those options that are out there are all channels or tools to reach that goal of creating
mhm.
the event or the experience. So, yeah, let's talk about it because let's see if we can try um, to calm the debate a little bit, and I'll get on the same page about okay, we're actually just building events, and all of these channels and tools are ways of getting to that experience. So let me start because I think the omni-channel concept
Yeah.
may be unfamiliar for a lot of people. So why don't I ask you how you would define omni-channel? What do we mean by that?
So for me, an omni-channel event is about using or there being multiple channels between your event and your target audience and attendee,
Hmm.
right? That's being used. So whether you are using a virtual event platform and then simultaneously you've got an email marketing campaign taking place,
Hmm.
you're reaching your clients by email,
Hmm.
and then you are having to, for example, if you're in an in-person event, you're downloading an app on your smartphone to
Mm.
look at the schedule, to contact the events team and do all of that. So you're still using tech, right? So it's
Right.
not purely in person. You're not just walking. You can walk to the reception and ask, but
Hmm.
you can also get everything on your app.
Hmm.
And then there's also you using social media channels to give your feedback, to do gamification, to
Hmm.
talk to your friends and share stories and share your experiences. To a very good example is we attended a Tomorrowland last year as a group virtually,
Mm.
but whilst we were on the platform that they built to attend Tomorrowland, we were all in a Zoom call,
Mm.
and there were many people around the world that were meeting in living rooms in
Mm.
person as groups and watching Tomorrowland
Yeah.
virtually on big screens
Hmm.
in their house.
Yeah.
So, and then they were sharing it to social media. They were buying merchandise on the app. They
Hmm.
were um, getting, I don't know, backstage access to DJ sessions.
Hmm.
I mean, to me, that is an omni-channel event. That's not a virtual event. It's
Mm.
omni-channel, and
Hmm.
every event now is omni-channel.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
truly believe that it's just a matter of in which, I would say, percentage are you using
Hmm.
what channel, because and that is determined by your objectives and your goals
Hmm.
for the event and how you
Yeah.
want to set it out.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And let me also draw a really like a big line. My my vocabulary is like shot. I don't know if anybody can tell, but I am so sleepy.
Oh, oh, good.
But I'm here. I'm here. I'm with
You
it.
got
So
mood
like
lighting as well. I mean, I don't think that's helping.
I was trying to I was trying to like think of a word for a thin line, but then no. Let me draw a line between
Fine. Okay.
what I would call multi-channel and omni-channel too, because I think those it's easy to get confused about these because I've seen people using multi-channel
Yeah.
marketing, multi-channel events. So they're like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to have Twitter and we're going to do email and we're going to, so you have multiple channels to create experiences or interactions to the attendees. And that's great. That's a good start. But that's not omni-channel because
No.
unless all of those channels are connected, so there's some sort of connection, and it strategically it makes sense, and how Twitter is being used in the newsletter is being drawn into the virtual event is so all these things. If they're not connected, that's multi-channel. That's
Yeah.
okay, but to optimize it, make it omni-channel, which means you have all of these channels, but they work together. I don't know
Correct.
if that makes sense,
No,
because
absolutely.
because
That makes
otherwise they're living in separate silos, and that's okay. But it can be done better, which is use all those channels but find a way to pull them all together so somebody can be you're streaming on a virtual event and at the same time you're pulling off messages from the Twitter, the hashtag. That's an example of omni-channel because you're actually using two channels together, not
Yeah,
in separate silos. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that makes complete sense,
Did I do that okay with my sleepiness?
Absolutely. You pinned it down. I mean, this is the O part of it, right? It's the omni. It's
Yeah.
about optimizing. It's about bringing them
Yeah.
together. And
Exactly.
it's the same as when I tell people that you have to be omnipresent,
Hmm.
right? So one of the things about visibility, which I bang on about to everyone, and look, the proof is in the pudding. When I went to the meeting space, everyone was coming up to me going, "Oh my God, you're everywhere! I see you on social. You're doing this. You're doing that." I haven't left my house in 2 years, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How am I this visible, right?
Mm.
But it's about being omnipresent, right?
Hmm.
So when you go to a trade show or you go to an event or you're doing something, it's about creating those connections and bringing it together and making sure you are omnipresent. So
Hmm.
you're using social media whilst you're having this, whilst you're present in the in-person event, and so there's a connection, right? And
Exactly.
then you're building on that, so it's this omnipresence. And with
Exactly.
events it's exactly the same thing.
Mhm,
Yes, there's multi channels, there's a multitude of channels, my
mhm.
goodness, right?
Yep.
But in order to make it truly omni-channel, which so many events have the potential to be, or just looking at it from that perspective, that's
Mhm,
what you want, because you
mhm.
do want them to all link up. You do want it to make sense.
Yeah.
You do want to understand that when we're planning this event, there is that opportunity and possibility that someone might be using Twitter at the same time,
Mhm. Yep.
or Instagram at the same time,
Mhm.
or they might be on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
or so
Mhm.
how do we how do we make
Mhm.
that omni-channel thing
Right.
happen?
Mhm.
How do we optimize that touch point and make
Right.
sure it works
Exactly.
towards what we want to achieve versus,
Exactly.
yeah, it's there. They'll use
Exactly.
it and
Right.
then just keep it inside.
Yeah, and how are they connected? So like great, you built a Twitter account with a hashtag, you have your email list, you have your virtual event, you have your Instagram account. That's great that those exist, but then I think you have to go a step further, which is okay. Now, how are we going to connect all of those? What's the bridge between all of those? So as the event's going on, all of these are being updated and can interact with each other. I think it's important to keep that in mind. Whether that's having a Twitter feed in the stream, or sending out emails during the event to remind people that the event's going on and you're missing this. So come back, or because people forget to go into the virtual events. The attendance rate is not 100%. So I think it's thinking about the
Absolutely.
different channels, but then taking it a step further, which is now that we have all these channels established, how do we make them all work together?
Yeah, exactly. And that is what we wanted to let everyone know today, that it is about optimizing all the channels, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have so much at our disposal, but the end of the day, stop breaking it down, stop putting them into boxes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, try to optimize and bring them together to create omni-channel events, because at the end of the day, that's the future.
Yeah.
This is the future. It's We're already here. Actually, it's the present. We're already here. These
Yeah.
touch points exist, these channels exist. It's about bringing them together and seeing what is going to work best and
Yeah.
optimize in terms of your events, whether it's, again, in person, hybrid, virtual. It can be whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's your event.
Mm-hmm.
Make it omni-channel, make it omnipresent.
Yeah.
That's all we wanted to say today. So this was our wonderful welcome back to 20 Minutes Event Pros Weekly Live. Look, we only went over by 6 minutes. We're doing good,
Amazing. That's not
right?
bad.
We're
That's a
doing
good
good.
start. That's a
It's a
good
good
start.
start.
It's only
But
up from there.
but we will be back next week on this live, keeping it to time today, well, a little bit. And yeah, watch this space to see what we are going to be talking about next week. If there's anything you want to ask, you want to know about, that you want us to banter about on the show, if there's anything new that's being launched, any shows you want to talk about or mention, or any other topics, drop them in the comments
Yep.
wherever you're watching. This is streaming live to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at the moment. And thank you all for joining. Thank you, Maria, Teresa, for joining, Yarrow, for Naomi, whoever is watching this on the replay. Thank you for joining us, and it's awesome to be back.
It is. Yes. Back in business in so
Back
many
in,
ways. In so many ways.
exactly. And we will see you all next week. Take care, guys.